Banks are not our friends, they're useless. I just have developed a career on figuring out how to create funding. Everybody's got an idea, but if you don't have anything but gas in the tank, you're pretty much screwed. If you don't have anyone mentoring you, you're doubly screwed because then you'll lose the money that you got in the first place.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, children of all shapes, sizes, welcome to another episode of High Stakes with Steve Rozenberg. As you know, the reason I do this selfishly is I love making friends. I think I get my energy off of people. Some people, it drains them. For me, I just feed off it. I love meeting people. I love talking to people. I think that comes from me being an airline pilot and traveling the world for the last 30 years. And, you know, what I've noticed is whether I'm sitting in a bar in Sydney, Australia, or having sushi in Tokyo or steaks in Buenos Aires, there's a lot of people around me. And what I've realized is every one of those people, they've got a past, they've got a current, and just like everyone watching, they've got a future that they just don't know yet. And so sometimes you just turn around and talk to someone and go, what's your story? What's your deal? And you realize that person has a whole interesting life that you would have never known if you just didn't ask them anything. So today I have Peter Burns on. Peter, good to meet you.
Nice to meet you, Steve.
So tell us who you are and what you do.
Well, I guess first and foremost, I'm an entrepreneur from the get-go. I started as a very small child, did my first official business at 19. I've been busy opening up businesses of my own. And really what I focus on in this last chapter of my life, which hopefully will be long, I'm going to be 70, is I am going to help as many people over the threshold of entrepreneurship enter into and be supported by someone who is an entrepreneur helping fellow entrepreneurs. And I'm in the financial business. So I have had to be very creative, raising money for my own companies, of which I started 150 since the age of 19. No banks would touch us. Banks are useless as tits on a bull, in all honesty. So I got really good alternate financing. And I developed a system and just try everything until where we are today is I have a very unique fintech solution that I launched this particular application of my money raising skills about 6 months ago, and I've raised about $25 million. This is without any advertising, anything, any marketing, because I need to perfect it before I let it out there. So podcasts are becoming the coin of the realm for me because I don't market. All I do is on LinkedIn, I've got 30,000 first connections. And what I do is I write 3 posts every week and I get 100,000 viewers. And that has resulted in all of my clients so far. So I'm actually very interested in reaching out to the podcast, all the people that you have in your podcast and other well-respected podcasters, because I really think I have a better mousetrap, and that's what I want to present out there.
So let's pull back a little bit to who you are as a person. I'd like to, obviously 150 businesses doesn't come with that. That's not a small feat, but
no, and it's with a lot of battle scars. Trust me.
I'm sure you have a lot of arrows in your backs.
Yes.
From the years.
I get them all the time, but that's okay. I'm not going to say I'm impervious to them, but it doesn't hurt as much. And I was born in a very privileged background. I was raised in New Canaan, Connecticut. My dad was a famous advertising man. You know the television series Mad Men?
Yeah.
My dad is the composite for all of those characters. He literally lived that entire life. I grew up in that life. They had a bar car. They had the 3 martini lunch. We were in the last station to heaven that was called New Canaan that ran back and forth to New York every day. And my little brother, Michael, actually produced that television series because he bought Lionsgate Entertainment with a partner about 20 years ago. Now it's the largest film and entertainment company in the world. And then my brother Kevin following my brother Michael's footsteps, was an investment banker who parlayed that into a $6 billion private hedge fund. And so they did everything the way you're supposed to. I left home at 17, and I was in the Army at the end of Vietnam, and I was training infantry soldier. Then I went to jump school, et cetera, et cetera. And I was lucky. I won an appointment to West Point. I actually had a Secretary of the Army pluck me out of the Army, right out of my formation, and offer me an appointment to West Point, which was always a great honor.
Sure.
It was something I'd never even thought about. And right from training, I went to West Point Prep School. And then I heard about ROTC, although I wasn't eligible for it because I was not a civilian. That's a civilian scholarship. But at the time, West Point did not have women. And I thought, I can get the same lieutenant's bars, same military obligation, education, whichever school will take you that the Army's going to pay for. And so I just harangued this poor cadet's father, who was the head colonel in charge of the system. And I wore him down finally. I'm not good at taking no for an answer if I really want something. That's been the story of my life. One motto that I go by is ready, fire, aim, which I don't think about stuff too detail oriented and stuff like that. I take that hill. I was well fit for the infantry, let me tell you, as far as attitude. The part was I ended up in school and I took an entrepreneurship course. And at the time, the University of Virginia was only 4 schools of the country that had an entrepreneurship course. Like hell, they couldn't even spell entrepreneur. And you couldn't get into the class because it was a senior elective for only members of the McIntyre School of Commerce, but you have to be a junior to get in to McIntyre. But I was a freshman. I didn't pay any attention to that. And needless to say, I got into the class. I did a great business plan. That became my first official business on Nantucket Island, which has been our family's home for 60 years. I'm the one that brought mopeds to the United States and rented them. And that became my first successful, visible business. Although the honest truth is I've been starting little businesses since I was 6 years old. And that's another story. But I just love what I do. You know, I'm the oldest of 4. They're all my brothers and sister, my sister married an investment banker. My brothers were investment bankers. They did everything right. I, of course, did nothing right. Have always gone to my own drummer. And so far, it's worked. And like I said, I'm going to be 70 and I'm not quitting anytime soon.
So in your journey, tell me about a time that nobody knows about, nobody claps for, but it changed everything for you or changed a large amount.
That's a good one. My life has been pretty visible, Steve. I'm all over the net because I've just been in a niche, which is entrepreneurship, for my entire 50-year career. There's not much they haven't covered. And, bad things happen. You don't necessarily want to broadcast them, but they do. I've absolutely suffered with betrayal from people who wanted to take the stuff that I had done or didn't like all the attention I was getting, throw me under the bus. I'm not a good, how should I say that? I'm not going to say I'm not a good team player. As long as I run the team, I'm fine. But I've never been second in command, nor would I ever want to be. Never had a job before. So I've definitely failed a bunch of times. And, the thing about it is, while most people consider failure the end of the road, to me, it's just practice. That's the tuition we pay as entrepreneurs. If you haven't lost, you don't know what you can gain. And you also, if you're smart, you don't do what made you lose again. You try to actually move forward from that.
So as an entrepreneur myself, and studying people, I think it's important to study people, both successful and people who have succeeded and failed, both good and bad. There's tyrants out there that I think maybe they're what they were doing it for, the reason wasn't correct, but how they moved nations is very interesting to me. One thing I've learned is people that are successful, and again, we can say for good or for bad, evil, whatever we want to call it, I believe people that are successful, people like yourself, other people out there, the one thing that I have noticed is they have a belief, and that belief is congruent with where they're going. My question to you is, how do you have a belief for 150 businesses throughout the thing to believe? And I'm guessing some were winners and I'm guessing some were not. And that,
100%,
again,
100%.
but how do you have that belief? How do you pick yourself up on a new business model? Like, and I'm curious to have that belief to say, okay, I'm going to do this again, rinse, repeat, copy, paste, repeat, do it again.
Well, that's exactly what I do. If it doesn't work, if I hit a wall, just put it to the side, but take the pieces that did work and incorporate them hopefully into the next venture I do. So I don't hit the wall again. Obviously it's painful and very expensive. And then there are things out of your control, like COVID knocked the living shit out of me, like it did with so many millions of people. But I had some seriously large businesses that got completely annihilated. I had a contract with the country of Vietnam for 10 years worth $400 million that went through its first year. It was fantastic. I had hooked up with a couple of guys who actually are from the country of Vietnam, and they were the sons of a widowed South Vietnamese woman who an American married and brought them back and raised them in the United States. Well, they were so smart that the government of Vietnam allowed them to bring the internet to the whole friggin' country, and they controlled it for 50 years. Well, I was partners with them on a number of different things. I got to piggyback a deal where they invented the e-visa for the country of Vietnam. 16 million people at the time that I was involved with this would come to Vietnam. They'd all pay, I don't even know how much it cost, but I got $2.50 for 16.5 million e-visas because that was my compensation. Well, we got through the first year. And prior to my tech geniuses coming into that deal and bringing me in behind them, Vietnam had like a huge warehouse with people stamping visas, 300 people doing it. Took weeks. They simply monetized it and made it fit, with technology and made it work. So at a fraction of the time, I was instrumental in putting that together. That's cool. And I all of a sudden, it was very lucrative. But who would guess that COVID would hit? COVID hit, the country closed down completely. They shuttered Vietnam. And the president of the country who signed my damn contract went to jail for corruption. Poof. Well, that was one. That was like one. I had the first cannabis church in the world in Los Angeles. We replicated, I'm a Catholic, by the way. I wasn't doing anything bad. We replicated the sacraments that the Catholic Church uses for this church. And the church was a legal 501c3 or whatever the hell it was. And long story short, we had 6,000 members of the church. Cannabis products only cost a third. And you could, it was like an incredible thing. And I was going to completely dominate this business. And then what happened? COVID. You can't go into a place where it's a church that everybody smokes dope all day. And it was like incredible. And on and on and on. I got into, this is just this 1 year. I got into very luxury oriented group homes in a Del Webb community where the people had saved up all their money and retired there. So their houses were free and clear, but they got to the point where they simply couldn't function by themselves. They needed to have some sort of help. So they were still ambulatory. So we came up with a model that retrofitted 3 10-bedroom, 10-bath houses, $8,000 a bedroom because we had an LPN and a chef. They didn't even have to leave their neighborhood. They could easily afford it because they had a free and clear paid house. They didn't have to shuttle out of the neighborhood where their friends and families were and all that good stuff. It was fantastic. I'm getting ready for the grand opening of these 3 10-bedroom, 10-bath homes. They were all pre-booked for a fortune. And COVID hit. And guess whose population was dead center. Now I thought by then no one knew about COVID. I thought I could ride it out. Well, we know how that ended. So you got to be able to take the body blows, and you can't gamble everything in the whole planet on the one idea. I spread it around. I diversify all the time. And how I start, Steve, is I don't go in and say, "Oh, that's going to be $1 million, so go ahead. Let me go." No, it's not that at all. I do it baby steps. I try the model. I create the model. Put up a website, or not a website. What do you call those things? A splash page. I find out if I have customers. If I have customers, then I have a business. If I don't have any customers and no one wants what I have, then next, so I don't mind chucking it out and starting something new. So that's my whole thing. I'm an adventurer, Steve. I love doing what I do so much. I love helping people, but I help people to help themselves. And by doing that, I figured out very unique methodologies to raise venture debt capital. And my biggest thing I ever did was invent how they don't have to pay it back. But that's another story, or I'll explain whenever you ask me.
So let me ask you this. A lot of times when we're being successful on our journey, right? And I think that you're probably a great example that we never go to a destination. I think of entrepreneurs as like sharks. We never stop swimming. We don't go to a place and stop.
We'll drown.
We die if we stop.
Absolutely.
As you've been going through your journey, what have you had to let go of to get to the next level? A lot of times we think of what we need to do more of. And I always ask the different question. Who did you have to not be or let go of a belief to get you to where you had to be at the next level of your business?
I never accept other people's judgment of who I am or what I'm supposed to do. If I did things that I was supposed to do, I never would have left New Canaan, Connecticut. I would have finished my secondary schooling. I would have gone into a traditional university and probably a grad school and entered into a profession, lawyer, you name it. Everybody else did it. I grew up with the heirs to the Watson family, IBM. I grew up with George Soros's nephew, Peter Soros. Of course, everybody hails George Soros, but his father was a great guy. And I've been friends with him for 10 years, since he was 10 years old. So I have a breadth of contacts that span the world. I've lived all around the world too. I even lived in Africa for a while. I don't let people judge me by the path that I take. That's my path. I'm going to go on that journey because I want to go on that journey, and you can't get in my way. The great part about a very fortunate thing that I have, Steve, is no one can tell me what to do. I don't have any bosses. I own everything 100%. I just don't accept judgment. And if they are judging me or saying stuff detrimental or telling me it's not going to work, that's almost like raising a red flag in front of a friggin' bull. You say I can't do it, and I prove I can. And then I beat you to death with the completed project. I don't care. That's my whole thing. I have learned to let go and just be exactly who I am. I can be authentic because what's the purpose of not being?
Do you have any regrets that you're still working of letting go of?
Well, I really wasn't very good at being married. I did marry a lovely young woman. I was with her for 14 years. I was way too young. And it was, in all honesty, it was kind of like an arranged marriage. My family was wealthy. Her family was wealthy. We were the last kids that had been married. And anyway, long story short, I sort of got shamed into the marriage. And I was really terrible at it, which everyone knew. But I had two beautiful daughters. My daughters gave me 10 magnificent grandchildren. Each one gave me, one has 6, the other has 4, and they're each a set of twins. And my goal in this stage of my life is to handle all of their educational costs. Everything from if high school costs money down the road, if college costs money at grad school, I'm going to pay for it all. And it's going to be a lot of money. So it's a goal I have set for myself, for my end game, if you will. What better what better reason would I have than making the progeny of my family continue and be educated, take the burden of what's going to cost $1 million a child, according to my what do we call financial planner. That's how much it's going to cost. And why would I burden my two daughters and their husbands with that if I could focus all my energy? What am I going to go out with? I came in with nothing. I'm going to leave with nothing. I may as well make sure that my grandchildren are taken care of.
Is that tied to a regret?
Gosh, that's a good question. I regretted hurting my former wife or any of my family members, that my inability to be married and to do traditional things. I regret that. I don't want to hurt anyone, but it's just not for me. But had I not decided to go through my marriage and try it, at least, I wouldn't have my beautiful grandchildren and my two daughters. So you take the silver lining, you take the win.
Yeah. So let's talk about I believe my analogy of life, for what it's worth, is I believe we're like a book, and books are made of chapters. Chapters begin and chapters end. I think, certain time frames that, like, being married, chapter, our 20s, 30s, chapters. Military for you is a chapter. What chapter are you in now?
Sort of like the elder statesman of entrepreneurship.
Okay.
Because of my age and the sheer decades of experience that I have, I'm uniquely positioned to be able to offer some sage advice to people.
Sure.
But I'm able to get the money. Nobody can get the money. Banks are not our friends. They're useless. And I just have developed a career on figuring out how to create funding. And that's what I like to pass on to all the people out there that want to be, I call them wannapreneurs. They're the ones that think they have an idea and they want to go do it. Everybody's got an idea, but if you don't have anything but gas in the tank, you're pretty much screwed. And if you don't have anyone mentoring you, you're doubly screwed, because then you'll lose the money that you got in the first place.
Yeah. So tell me what you're doing. I'm interested in hearing and letting the audience hear what it is you're doing today.
Sure. So about half a year ago, I developed a unique funding mechanism utilizing aged shelf corporations. Are you familiar with those at all, Steve?
I believe I am, but I'd like to hear your definition so I make sure I'm understanding the verbiage correctly.
A lot of people have heard of them, and then they mistake them for shell companies, which is that's a bad thing. A shelf corporation is simply a corporation that was founded 2 to 10 years ago. It depends on the state, wherever it is. And it's literally sat on a shelf at a broker's office while it files all its compliant paperwork every year on the year. So it's full compliance until it's sold to be activated. And then the banking group that we have takes that age shelf corporation, which is a main indicator of the credit worthiness of a corporation, is the age of it, according to lending institutions. And then what they do is they build out all the trade lines and all the other things that make that shelf corporation, it's already older, into a viable, credit-worthy institution where we can then raise capital for it. But we raise capital very uniquely. We have a roster of 91 banks and credit unions that work with us, that issue business credit cards to a viable corporation that they bless and they issue a credit card. Well, these shelf corporations can raise $500,000, $750,000, $1.3 million. And in about 6 months, I've sold 51 of them. Average is 500,000. So you look at about 25 million in funding that in this brand new idea kind of raised a bunch of money. Now, how I make money, I'm not a broker. I don't participate on commissions. I don't get any side deals. I don't get anything. Here's where I make my money, which is the unique aspect of it. I created about 2 years ago the Burns funding method. And what does that mean? That means I looked at all of the people that came to me for money over the years, and there have been about $1 billion worth of people that I have created ability to get money. And I wanted more than just to be a broker and all the good stuff and get commissions. That wasn't interesting to me. But what I really was interested in creating a venture debt lender position for myself. And how I did that was I ascertained that when people get money and they don't know what the hell to do with it, you're not doing them any favors by facilitating them raising more money, because they came to you because they needed money. They probably already have raised money before, and they were trying to win themselves out of that and figure out how to go get new money. So then they'll have a double whammy. So what I did was, and it was basically trial and error. It was a math equation. And I came up with the number on what I needed to take as a percentage of the money that I facilitated them receiving to put it into passive assets that I had proved out. I have about 6 different types of passive asset generators that pay me between 10 and 15% a month. Well, this is credit card debt. That means the most it's going to be is 3% per month, principal and interest. So the number that I came up with is literally 40%. If I achieved 40% of the money that I had facilitated them raising, I'd split the balance after any costs were taken out of the initial capitalization. You got to pay your brokers. And because they're in the form of business credit cards, they have to have a company. Believe it or not, there's actually companies out there that cash convert business credit cards. They charge you 6 points. So there's roughly 80% left of the initial amount of money that's being raised for the shelf. We each get 40% of the total, or we split 50-50. The person takes the 50%, does whatever they want with it, because my contract is very specific. In exchange for splitting it with me, I am able to use all of the profits that are purchased with my percentage of the money that I lent them in the first place to pay off 100% of the debt. So because I'm only getting 40%, I have to earn about 7% a month. Now that sounds outrageous, and who the hell makes that? I make that, and I've done it for years, okay? Small niche businesses that make a lot of money. I don't need factories. I don't need all this 1,100 employees. I don't need all this kind of stuff. I just define quick and dirty, what businesses am I into that make great money? So I get to keep the spread or allocate that spread from the money I make with one of me I pay off. And then I pay 100% of that original debt off. The person's already received half the money anyway. Now they get all of their untethered lines of credit and all their unused credit cards back again. It usually takes me 21 to 30 months. Okay, why am I sharing all this with you? Because that's what makes us really unique. I can loan you money as long as you get accepted into the program, as long as you're credit worthy to be able to come and go through it, and you follow directions. That's really important. A lot of people are pretty stupid, Stephen. They don't follow directions. Listen, I learned the hard way. I've got a lot of battle scars. And if you don't follow directions, you're not going to make any money, and I'm not going to give you any money. So
Sure.
You got to learn to play by the rules. And then you all of a sudden have achieved, now you have an asset that's free and clear. It's got perfect credit. It's got an 80 done score, which is equivalent to an 850 personal FICO score. And you've already proven you can pay back loans because I'm paying it back for you. What do I get out of all this? Well, I have to be delayed gratification because I make no money off the top. I don't participate in the shelves. I don't get any commissions from the bankers. But guess what I do get? Free and clear assets that make me 10 to 15% a month that you bought it for me because I leveraged your credit to
Sure.
go do it. Now, if I've got $25 million worth of ones sold without any advertising, that's roughly $10 million of assets that I'll own in the next 2 to 3 years, free and clear. And at even at 10% per month, that's $1 million a month in income. And that's a brand new idea. And I don't market it. That's why when people learn what I do, and I can verify everything I got. You go on my burnsfunny.com website, you can see everything. But it's very unknown and makes jumpers, banks jump out of windows and shit when I come in the room because bankers and I don't get along. Matter of fact, authority and I have a difficult problem. You should see me in the army, but that's another story.
Who is your target audience?
Either an existing entrepreneur who has a business that needs additional capital to help them to grow, expand, or they want to buy.
Accredited? Do they have to be accredited or
No, not at all. This is what you need to have. You have to have a 720 FICO score, no derogatories. That's it. And then you can get up to 2 of the shelves. You can get the shelves go from anywhere from 500,000 to 750 to 1.3 million. It's all that. And I have a banker with 25 years experience who does all that stuff. But there are people that just don't have a 720 FICO score, or they just don't want to go through the very painfully slow process of connecting all the dots. It's very complicated what I'm talking to you about. I'm just synthesizing it for the purpose of talking to you. And I need an absolute expert who I do have do this. So I have a secondary funding resource. No shelves involved. I can raise up to $750,000, but you got to have a 650 FICO score, and you got to listen to what my banker tells you to do. And then he figures out how to put it all together. Everything is covered, both the subordinate one, the 650 FICO score, and the shelf corporations are all covered with the Burns funding method, because that's the only way I make any money. It's the only way I'm giving you access to the money is if you play in my space.
Yeah, I like that.
You know who are great candidates for us? I have a few captains of airlines. And
really?
also this really appeals to former officers in the military who are transitioning from military service into civilian service, because they keep their credit great.
Sure.
That's the whole key. I don't know if you're aware of this. I don't know if you have military background too, but in the military, you don't pay your bills. They put you in the brig. So you learn the hard way. You got to pay your bills. Well, unfortunately, in this society, there's a lot of people that don't pay their bills. And so I have a select group that can qualify for what I do. And it's my job to put them into business if they can get that. And there are people too that are dying to get into business, but they can't pull the trigger because they've been handcuffed. You're right. That every 2 weeks they get a paycheck, they get insurance. I never had that. Matter of fact, I'm a Social Security age, Steve, and I couldn't prove that I qualify for Social Security because the last paycheck I got was 52 years ago as an infantry soldier. And I had to go dig up my DD 214 or whatever the hell it is. Anyway, long story short, there's a lot of people out there that need a lot of help, and I help them in the financial industry.
So as we kind of round this out, I've got just two final questions. If you're speaking to the person right now that's maybe listening to this show, and maybe they're stuck, maybe they're in survival mode right now. You've been doing this a long time. What truth do they need to hear from you?
Well, every journey starts with the first step. And what I do is I offer candid observation of the individual. I have a talk. My pre-qualification, if you will, is pretty simple. If you have any interest in business or any interest in acquiring funding for your business, you go to burnsfunny.com and you read about it and you understand what it is. So at least when you're on the call with me, you have some semblance of an idea of what the hell I'm talking about. Then in 15 seconds, our tech partner pre-qualifies you. No hit on your
soft hit.
It's a soft pull, right? And so we get all that. Banker does that. The client gets that. I get that. Then you just go on my calendar and book an appointment. I book them. I have between no less than 5 and up to 12 calls like this every day. And I get to know, so I can eyeball them, right? And this great technology, Google Meet, it has an AI analysis of the conversation with to-do points and all that good stuff. And I can remember what the hell I said to them, but I can be very candid with them. They just have to ask anything. And I'll know right away, literally in 5 minutes, if they got the guts and glory to give it a shot. And I'll find out how to steer them. If it's something they can't wait for, They can't wait the 3 months it's going to take to get the shelf and all this good stuff and keep their credit perfect while they're going through the process. I recommend to the secondary one, because if you don't get up to bat and swing, you're never going to hit the ball.
I love that. I love that. Peter, if people want to get a hold of you and talk to you, what is the best way? Is it going to your website? Is it seeing you
on my
social
website?
media, or?
Yeah, just go on to burnsfunding.com. It's got all my contact information, but you really want to go through the 3 steps I told you. 1, read everything. 2, get pre-qualified, whether you intend to go get money from me or not. At least know where you stand. Then 3, book a call on Calendly, and I'll have a very candid conversation. I'm not shy, Steve. I'll tell it like it is, and I'll try to guide you from disaster. God knows I've had enough of them. I wish I had me as a mentor way back when, but we were like redheaded stepchildren in my age, right? We entrepreneurs, matter of fact, we actually founded YEO, Young Entrepreneurs Organization. There were 21 of us, and I'm one of the 21 founders in 1987. Michael Dell, perhaps you've heard of him. Neil Balter, California Closets. We were all under the age of 30 and all multimillionaires. And basically, it was a self-defensive mechanism. Those were the ages of Gordon Gekko and Wall Street. Yeah. Greed is good. We're not corporate guys. We're never going to be corporate guys. But what the corporate guys don't get is that people like me and you founded all those big companies. It didn't just pop out fully hatched. It had to come from the blood and guts of entrepreneurs willing to give it a shot.
From the belief.
That's it.
Well, Peter, thank you so much for your time today. And for those of you that want to know more, we'll put it in the show notes, how to get to Peter's website. I definitely recommend that you go through the process, because look, this is how you want to see what you weigh, you step on the scale. You want to see what your finances are doing, go on a budget, track your numbers.
And we can help fix credit. We can do everything. My God, not everybody comes that literally perfect, but I'm here to help, Steve. This is my give back.
I think that's great.
Yeah.
I think that's great. Well, Peter, thank you so much for being on the show today. I really appreciate your time and knowledge and experience. I mean, it's, 150 businesses is no small.
I know it's a lot. And I know it sounds like, but the reality of it is I went back and audited myself. It's closer to 200. But it's because I'm just old. I've been doing this shit for 50 years.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Well, Peter, again, thank you for being on the show. It was great talking to you and learning about the Burns method. For those of you that want to know more, go into the show notes. On behalf of Peter and myself, I want to thank you all for being on High Stakes with Steve Rozenberg, and we will see you next week for another episode.
Thanks, Steve. Thank you so much. Take care.